Hi, I'm Morgan.
Hey, Morgan, do you mind explaining we Greenhouse 2 is totally transformed from what we had last year. And Greenhouse 2, last year was all tomatoes. But now when you come in here, you see these very different looking rows. Do you mind kind of walking through the changes?
Sure. So, as you mentioned last year, this was all tomatoes in here, and with the two outer rows that were the same last year, I think there were 4 or 5 more rows in here. All of them had tomatoes. We trellised them, we pruned them, and it remained super hard to walk through, super hard to harvest just because of the density. But this greenhouse is so productive. It's 200 feet long and 20 feet wide, so it holds a lot of warm air compared to our other two smaller greenhouses. So one of the things that I've done is plant 2 Meyer lemon trees in the back that are going to survive our extra cold winter. There's a lot of hope in my voice. Um, I just watered them the other day. They're in shock, but they seem fine.
Awesome.
But I digress. We wanted fewer rows in here so that even if we plant all of these with tomatoes, we can still walk through to harvest and the plants still get enough airflow. And that should cut down on disease. We saw so much powdery mildew in here last summer because stagnant air, hot, dry conditions, dense tomato plants.
Hmm.
Um,
But then, like when I'm looking, I see on this row here on the left, like it looks like the surface of the moon, right?
mhm.
Compared to this one on the right.
Oh, yeah.
Why do they look so different?
Yeah. So when we were moving the rows, we had to combine 2 rows essentially in this one, and the center of it was a pathway last year, so there was a lot more compacted silt and mud on top that has come to the surface, and we used a broad fork that gave us these like large, sort of uniform chunks that you see. Um, this middle one is the finished product, but this one on the right started out as basically the center of one of our tomato rows last year, so the structure looks a lot more like what we'd expect to see in a growing space. And this one, I'm just flattening the top a little bit, getting it ready for our soil amendment layer, but this one still needs some manual work. Like, we will break up some of these chunks. The reason we've done this the way we did is to minimally disturb what's already living in the soil, but a lot of these chunks don't have much or any, like soil fungi or healthy bacteria for plants in them. And so they kind of stick together, they get really dry, they keep water out, and they become really hard to deal with, as opposed to just crumbling into smaller crumbs that plants and fungi and bacteria can all use.
Now I can see from here that there's already biochar in the soil.
Oh, yeah.
And then I
We,
see here, we got all
yeah,
excited yesterday looking at all the mushrooms.
a little cup fungus. Yeah.
So obviously you've been adding some stuff.
Yeah.
So what's in here so far?
Yeah, we started this retrofit back in November, and at that point, we came through and added some bokashi and a bit of biochar to the surface. Um, Even before broad forking, I think, or maybe it was just after, but it's taken some time. And in the soil amendment, we have more biochar and bokashi, as well as some pre-composted alpaca manure from the West Hills, a nice little hobby farm. They pre-compost it with forest materials, which is like ideal. It's like the best thing you can do for compost because all of the forest microbes up there just have different diversity, different memories, different community, and they can bring a lot of enrichment down into agricultural soils. And then our last ingredient with this is hay, and it's some hay that was out in the rain. It's been here, I don't know, a year. It's been here longer than I've been here.
Right,
Um,
right.
but it's starting to rot down a little bit, which is ideal for adding in all of the bokashi and the alpaca manure microbes. Um, Hay and straw are pretty good fungal foods because they have a lot of what's called lignin, which is not wood, but it is a major component of wood. Grasses don't make wood, but they have lignin, and these large fiber pieces really encourage fungi rather than bacteria to colonize them, make little homes, and feed the plants and feed the soil in the process.
Right now, so you mentioned that it's gonna be more ideal for fungi than bacterial, um, but you were explaining to me earlier how some crops actually prefer bacterial and some prefer fungi.
Yes.
Um, what what crops specifically like are really gonna like why are you doing fungi? I know we talked about this a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, but could you explain it?
Yeah. I'm still going to be growing tomatoes in here. We still want the season extension that this greenhouse provides, but not just tomatoes this year. We're also going to be doing a lot of cucumbers, like counting the cucamelons, I think like 6 or 7 varieties, counting the pickles. No pickles in here, but bunch of cucumbers in here, some cherry tomatoes, some of our early season reds, and then peppers, eggplants, anything that wants really hot weather in the summer and needs a longer growing season is going to go in here. But what really goes well with a bacterial soil is brassicas. That's their like preferred thing. And on the weed side, grasses. And we have a lot of grassy weeds that we deal with. Um, Not too much in here. There are not too many weeds in here, but especially up on the hill that we're trying to push for a fungal dominant soil that will help reduce the grass numbers, the weed numbers, and help grow crops. And like, of course, where we grow brassicas, we're gonna have a different strategy, but those pretty much kind of all stick to one area, at least as far as I've thought about rotations.
Right, right. This is fantastic. Thank you for explaining it.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
You're welcome.